Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of You and I Builder Live, the show where one day we're going to have a tagline. My name is Maria Gabriela, Press Vector, and today we are joined by a bunch of awesome guests. But first, let's introduce ourselves, starting with the top left corner.
Hey, everybody, Brad Tilton. I am on the outbound product management team for our agent experience products here at ServiceNow.
And I am also on the product management team for our, whatever he said,
Agent experience
products.
Hi, my name is Lal Patel. I'm a product manager for our Next Experience framework and developer tooling and component development.
Hey everyone, I'm Wolfgang. I'm a software engineer working on the things that product manager just talked about.
All right, I like we got good patterns going here.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Brad, I wasn't supposed to be here today, so I'm not quite sure what we're doing. Can you give us a quick intro?
Yeah, I'll give a quick intro. So Wolf and Alop are not new to this show. They were on, August, when we released the first version of the Next Experience Developer Tools Chrome extension and kind of walked us through how that works. And so today they're going to share some of the new stuff that we have in the extension. I think probably a little bit of CLI talk as well. So the new things that are coming out along with the Washington, D.C. release timeframe. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Maria, for having us. And it'll be great to share kind of where we're at with everyone. And obviously feel free to leave feedback, inputs, thoughts in the comments, and we'll get started here. So we're gonna, as I said, we're really own the UX foundations around developing components, the next experiences, workspaces, etc. And so we're going to start with kind of a high level. We're going to share some of the high level roadmap with you folks, and would love just to kind of get some input and ideas from you guys as well, right? Like we're sharing kind of where we're going, but we'd love to also validate that and make sure that it's the right things for you, for all of you folks as we go forward here.
And two quick notes. First, I would like to say that I think it's the debut of us ever having PowerPoint slides on this show. I think we've done a solid year without that. Happy occasion. But the next thing I wanted to say is we're going to have links
forward-looking
to this.
Statements. These statements are intended to be covered by the safe harbor provisions contained in the
our fantastic producer making sure that we read safe harbor to everybody. So the last thing I wanted to say before Lap keeps going is that we're going to have links to the Next Experience Developer Tools Chrome extension in the chat and in the description, so you can check out the stuff that they're going to be talking about yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, Gabby. All right. So really what we're going to, I'll cover this, and then Wolf, my partner in crime here, is going to do a live demo for you guys, and I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope the demo gods are with us. But really, the Next Experience Developer Tools, as Brad said, officially launched in August. Really, it's a great tool to troubleshoot, debug Next Experience pages and issues that are happening in them as you're developing them or kind of trying to find out what's going on. In November, we've released twice since that August release and have a bunch of cool features that are coming in. In November, we added the ability, if you recall, in August, we created a profiler as part of the release, and you could check out the performance of your pages. Well, we now have a way for you to also automatically stop recording of those pages when the page is done loading, so you don't have to kind of guesstimate. We've also added some usability improvements around being able to only view rows that have non-zero values when you compare two different performance profiles, so you can really just see what's changed, and just having that same view as part of the events table. And in March, which we just recently released and is out there now, we have a new homepage with indicators. And really what we want to do with that is start to surface some suggestions, recommendations, or important metrics where that can ultimately help you find issues, but without having to spend a ton of time debugging and kind of looking at a bunch of different things. So we'll have some key metrics that you can kind of look at and kind of start using as a good way to ensure that there aren't issues with the pages that are being developed or implemented, as well as starting to surface server logs. And this will only be available for admins, but you'll see some of the server logs that will be available and in the tool. So really, we're starting to create this tool as your one place to go to for all things needed to debug and troubleshoot client and server side. And we'll continue to do that as we go forward here, but this is kind of the first step in that direction.
Since you guys are on the Chrome, since you guys are a Chrome extension, are you also tied to kind of like the store release cadence, or do you have your own kind of release schedule?
We try to stick with the store release cadence for the most part, where we do the bigger releases about every 3 months. We will do, smaller releases on a monthly basis if we need to for defects or kind of like minor issues that come up. But we try to stick with typically the 3 months, because that gives us a good window to actually, get some meaningful development done and quality and all of those types of things.
Makes sense.
All right. With that, I will turn it over to my partner in crime, Wolf.
All right. Let's see here. I think I should be sharing a window. Are you getting it?
We can see it.
Awesome. Cool. So Alap already showed we're in the Chrome store. I don't really need to go over that part here. But when you have the developer tools installed, I'm on a Washington instance here. I will open up my useful Chrome developer tools here. We add 2 new tabs for Inspector and Profiler. Inspector, I'll start with the stuff we added there, which is the home and log stuff. So on the home page, we have a series of cards show up related to data we're collecting about the page that you're on right now. I picked a page that happens to show several different potential issues that are happening on the page. So we built out more information about the components on the page, and we started the initial stuff for actions. So when it comes to components, you get a count of how many there are on the page, and then we look for some potential issues with the data, with the components that are on that page. And so just as taking an example, the first one is we look at the selectable props, which is selectable properties is a feature of the framework that allows you to connect data between different components in the tree. And so in this case, we found 3 of them have issues with the mapping of those properties. And all of these come with, detailed explanations of what's going on here. But just to sort of dig into what you can do with this information, if you click on details, it'll take you to this part of the components where you see the 3 issues that we are talking about with broken selectable props. I happen to know where they are on the page, so I'm going to show that as you hover over them, it shows you where that component is on the page that's having the potential issue. And then if you want to, you can click into them, and then you can dig into the details of the actual properties and sort of figure out what's going on with those. Very similar with some of the other indicators we have around state or the depth of the tree of components. When that gets particularly deeply nested, that can run into some issues with performance and all sorts of other things. I think that's what I had to say about the home. And then each of these becomes, when you open a filter that you can clear and just go back to the regular components view.
I really liked the home page. That is a nice, because before when you came in, you just got this components tree, and it was kind of an abrupt, and this all sorts of data now, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah, this is obviously just our first pass at things. We're going to continue to build and expand on what we've laid the groundwork for here.
And is this out right now, or are you showing us something that's
I'm using the version that just got published earlier this month that Alap mentioned right now. So this is already available.
And this can be used on earlier. So while it's kind of part of the Washington release, this can also be used and seen on previous releases like Vancouver.
Correct.
Because there aren't any family release dependencies for this particular functionality. Yeah,
the stuff we added it doesn't rely on anything that's newly shipped in the platform. It's pre-existing stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, so with that, if wasn't anything else, I think I'll move on to logs.
Ooh, I have a random question. This is probably a dumb question, but if I installed this in August, is it going to automatically update for me, or do I have to go update it?
If you install it through the Chrome Web Store, it will update at least the behavior I've seen, and Chrome, obviously Google could change this at any time, but the behavior I've seen is it will update whenever you completely close and reopen Chrome. It won't update while Chrome is running. That's the experience I've been getting so far.
Nice.
And some of it will also depend on if you've manually updated that preference to not have it automatically update, then you won't get it. But
yeah, it's also possible depending on like your IT, they could also bypass updates and things like that. So the default behavior, if you haven't customized anything, is that it'll update when you completely close and reopen Chrome.
Yeah, and if you look at the extensions, I believe it was 3.2.1. Is that the right version we had? Wolf is 3.2. something.
I think it's 3.2.2 actually.
Okay.
We've currently shipped. Yes, 3.2.2. Oh, I could have looked here as well.
Yep.
Nice.
All right. So let's move on to logs.
Can you just get back to the home real quick? So there are 4 indicators that we have that'll be on the home, and I don't know if you were planning to go over them or not, so I just figured I'd mention them real quick. Yeah, so broken selectable props is most likely a functional issue that'll be something that would be important to dig into more. The other ones where it's like state too big and DOM depth are really tracking how big are these things. So if you have state objects that are really large, that's going to be a performance indicator. Like, hey, you have to parse a lot of object data, navigate through it all, and all that stuff takes time. Same with DOM depth. Browsers are typically 32 nested children is what they're optimized for. So now all of a sudden, if you have a much larger DOM depth, that's something to consider. So those 2 are mainly kind of around, helping with performance if you're seeing some of that stuff, but to hopefully help you stay within kind of what's optimized for browsers.
Nice.
Yep.
And there was one more, Wolf, what was the last one? It's not popping into my head right now. Look at component IDs.
Yeah.
So if component IDs, if there are multiple component IDs with the same ID, we will also surface that. So hopefully that is another functional pitfall that you could fall into.
Yeah.
Good news, everybody. I tested it myself by kicking myself out of the stream. But if you completely shut down your Chrome, it does update.
Magic. Okay, ready to move on?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, cool. So logs, I think I'll mention this. The version we're shipping today is going to support server-side logging. So it's kind of similar to, I don't know if any folks on here would have used the session debugger before, but we've sort of brought a lot of that same functionality into here, where if you hit the record button here, and then let me just say navigate somewhere that's going to do a bunch of things on the server side, you'll see logs will start coming in here. I'm going to dismiss this warning about something that's coming in the future. And so you'll see that like it's a table of the messages, when they happen, the severity. So we have filtering on those. So for instance, if you don't want to see the info messages, you can see just the warning and errors here. And then let me move this so I have more control here. Yeah, and then if I put this back, I'll have enough that we could have pagination on all of this sort of stuff, navigate around. Let's see. What else is there to say about the logs? All up?
And we do truncate, but if you look at that second to last, if you hover over it, you should be able to see the full message. I think if you want to just show that real quick.
Yeah, I'm hovering.
But yeah, so yeah. This will, however, you will only be able to see the server side information if you're logged in and have the admin role. We want to certainly ensure that this is not visible for anybody experiencing your page, etc. So it is particular that you'll get an authentication error if you do try to access the logs and you're not logged in with a admin role at minimum. But yeah, that's kind of the only other nuance to this.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Not something I would have thought about, but I'm really glad that you guys thought about it for me.
We try to only do cool things, Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
I see. That's oh my gosh, we've come up with the tagline for the show. Welcome to You and I Builder Live, where sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Good one, yeah.
Yeah.
This is perfect. Thank you so much.
All right.
So anything more on logs, or shall I move on to the profiler stuff?
I think that covers this stuff. So yeah, let's move on to the profiler.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to mention there was the so by default, like in previous builds, we were the user was in control of like when we started and stopped recording. So we added this feature to automatically detect when the page loads, which is really useful for page load type of reload and record type of use cases here. So I'll just show one of those here.
That's another feature that I really appreciate that you guys had put in, because it's really hard to tell when something has stopped loading.
Mm-hmm.
You never know if it's because you broke something or if it's just your internet connection. So this is very useful.
Cool. I'm going to do a second one also because some of the stuff involves comparing having two profiles here. So you'll get to see it again, and it stopped. So the next thing I want to show is under the table of all the events we've captured. We have here a drop down that lets you select. The current stuff is everything that we had before is all, and then you can also see the data broken down, aggregated by component name here, which is similar to what we had in the compare view, but it's available here for the more detailed view of the profile. And so speaking of the compare view, the other stuff I want to show is in there, where if you're comparing two different profiles, you'll see here that a bunch of these rows are just all blanks because they're showing the differences between the two. And so in this case, that is kind of not super helpful and kind of noise in a way. And so we added essentially a filter on the table here that lets you hide those rows and then filter it down just to looking at the things that actually have deltas in one of the columns.
Oh, that makes it a lot more usable.
Yeah. And so the other thing we did to the table is if you want to see the raw numbers and not just the differences, so like the before and after, if you will, of each of those, previously you would have to expand the rows one at a time. And so we added a button to expand everything if you just want to be able to look at all the raw data, and then collapse it all if you don't want to see that anymore.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Some little usability improvements. Was there anything else we wanted to show for Profiler? Those were the ones I was aware of.
Yeah, I think those were the big, small but big improvements in terms of kind of just usability information that people would have and be able to use.
Okay. Cool. That was all I was planning to demo.
All right.
So now I think, go for it a lot.
Okay. Oh, no, I was just going to go over the kind of where we're going to go and kind of share some of that. But if you had something you want to just say, go for it.
No, I was just going to say we should try to break something and see what the tool tells us, but please.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So, okay. So what I wanted to share is kind of things and ideas and areas that we're thinking about for 2024 and beyond. Not necessarily in any given release, but kind of areas of improvement and kind of areas of focus that we'll have. And this is where I think, what we would certainly love and appreciate is if there are any of these things that you're like, hey, this is the most important to me, or these are the 2 or 3 things that sound like they would be the most valuable for me. Just put those in the chat, and we can certainly use that information to help us prioritize how we're delivering things in the future.
And real quick before that, since we don't usually show this kind of content on this show, we mostly cover the stuff that's already out or very shortly coming out. So just again, to remind everybody in the chat and in the audience, this stuff may or may not have a release date, and also only make purchasing decisions based off of stuff that's already available. And I think we're good with the disclaimers. Go right ahead.
All right. Sounds great. All right. So there's really 3 big outcomes that we're always kind of shooting towards. One is just improving our runtime performance. We want to ensure that the experience is built using our within the next experience, and experiences all of you are building are very performant. And we want to get really fast page load times, just like consumer experiences. So 3 seconds or less out of the box is kind of a higher level goal. Again, that's a very big, audacious, hairy goal for things in ServiceNow and data-centric experiences, but it's something we want to shoot for. We want to increase developer productivity. So we want folks to save time and money by reusing things that are already in the platform, reduce the time it takes to iterate when changes need to happen, and prevent development silos or blocking development because there's more than a few people working on things. And then last but not least, some of it you saw, faster troubleshooting. So finding performance and functional issues in minutes, not minutes or hours, not necessarily days or weeks, are kind of the three broad areas and things that we want to kind of focus our feature set and kind of improvements on. All right, so some of the things that we'll talk about are improving runtime performance. There's things where we're looking at how do we optimize loading of pages, like I talked about. Some of that is going to be, okay, well, if I'm navigating to different pages, can we cancel blocking transactions because we know you're navigating to another page and we don't need to hold up the navigation anymore. We're going to look at things related to prioritizing loading of components. So kind of, for example, if there's components that are outside of your viewport and outside of the view, do we need to load them as the page is loading, or can we do it more iteratively so that the page is loaded and interactable within a shorter period of time? We also want to increase developer productivity. So we're looking at things like, how do we enable things like Intellisense? How do we enable frameworks like TypeScript to improve code quality, help discoverability, help usability of the framework as you guys are developing custom components in particular, as well as supporting Webpack 5, which will enable faster server start times, faster iteration times, code changes. We can take advantage of some things like module caching, hot module replacement, things like that. So again, in service of, I made a change, how do I quickly see it? How do I test it? How do I get it onto an instance? Along with that, one of the ideas we have is what we're calling fetch from instance, which is right now as a component developer, if you are creating custom components, all of our great UIB components aren't available to you to use within your custom components. So a important initiative we're looking at right now is how do we unlock those components to use within custom components and do that consistently so that it's consistent behavior in your dev servers, it's consistent behavior on the instance, and you have all of these components that you can now use so you don't have to recreate them. And basically the idea behind this is that your instance becomes your NPM repo. So as you're going from different family release to family release, you're always pulling the versions that belong to that particular family release instance or are on that particular developer instance that you have. So that way there's not this lag time either of, hey, I'm developing in a newer family release to validate things versus production is in a different family release. It kind of minimizes all of those challenges in between. And then last but not least, some of it is going to be, we have this great Now SDK that the team released in Washington. And that's kind of bringing together application development in a single environment. I think the example they put on LinkedIn is the web version of VS Code. And so we also want to enable the development experience to be part of that singular ServiceNow development experience. So we're going to be doing some work there to kind of ensure that it's truly a singular development experience and not different tools for developing components versus applications versus something else, and kind of really make it seamless and intuitive to build all of these things within ServiceNow much more easily.
So that's kind of whatever your development workflow looks like, we want to support that with custom components. So
yep.
Whether you're developing locally in VS Code or using the VS Code in the browser.
Yep, that's right.
Nice.
And of course, last but not least, we want to continue to improve our next experience developer tools. We're looking at things, as we talked about, some of the indicators are there where we certainly have a lot more ideas on exposing even more of those types of things and kind of common pitfalls and failure patterns. We also want to look to expose what service workers are doing. That tends to be an area that is not very well transparent and tends to have issues or at least leads to finding issues that are occurring. So what are service workers doing? Are they pulling out things from the cache, not from the cache, etc.? Logs, we just talked about server logs. We also want to add client logs. So again, all of the logs are in one place, whether it's a server or a client log. And another thing we think is going to be immensely useful is actually what we're calling execution waterfall or traces, where you can actually see, again, front end to back end, what's triggering what, how long are those different things taking, what are the logs related to them, and even potentially jumping to the code from there to things that you care about. So now it's not piecing together information of what's happening, but it's actually visually showing you what's happening, in what order, and how long is it taking, to help kind of identify performance issues in particular, and help with other things, other issues that you may see as well. So we're really excited about that one as well. And I think that is the last piece of the puzzle that we're looking into at the moment. But these are kind of, again, high level, big areas that we want to go after, and we think will be really valuable for all of the folks, whether you're creating next experience pages or developing custom components or somewhere in between there. And really excited and looking forward to, bringing those out for everyone to use.
Cool. Well, I've got, Alap, was that the end of what y'all had?
Yep. That's the big bang right there.
Well, I've got some things we can try to do a little bit of debugging on, but we didn't really go over what the changes to the CLI were in the Washington release. Were there anything big with the CLI changes?
Yeah, I think most of it was internal for us, is kind of updating the internal engine mainly to support a more common code base. We had kind of an issue of having splintered code bases for different CLIs, whether it was within ServiceNow or customers were using, et cetera. So there aren't any real functional improvements to call out, but we are setting up the foundation to then now, kind of build off of and deliver more of those kind of things that I had called out around, like, fetch from instance and things like that. So Washington for us was mainly like building that foundation to hopefully deliver these big improvements.
Nice. Well, before we get into anything else, from the chat, does anybody have any questions or feedback on where they'd like to see this sort of thing go?
We had a quick question, mostly about what troubleshooting question. So let's say I'm impersonating an end user as an admin. Does that give me the access error?
Yes, it does currently. We've thought about that use case and had some conversations. At this point, it seemed a little dangerous to expose all of that, even when you're impersonating, but it is a line item for us to go dig into more. So right now, yes, if you impersonate, you won't see the server logs because it won't detect you as an admin user.
Makes sense. I think that's it for questions.
We had a few questions about user experience analytics funnel and UIB. That's not a question that I can answer off the top of my head right now. We'd have to look up an answer to that, because technically neither are actually my products. But we can look up an answer if you want to follow up in the S&Dev Slack or on the community. All right. I guess let me share, and I have an idea for something we can try to do in terms of doing some troubleshooting with the DevTools. So let me share real quick. I'm trying to do
while you set that up, I will start with some quick plugs. Thanks, Earl. I appreciate it. Our next Experience Academy is going to be on April 17th. We're going to be going over kind of everything you need to know to get started and enjoy the content that my team makes. Basically, it's a great starting point for your coworker who's trying to get into UNI Builder Live or trying to learn about Next Experience and any of our products. It's going to give a very thorough intro to everything there. So I hope it's a great starting point for a lot of our newcomers and next gen and other programs. Additionally, we are going to not have any shows the month of May. So no Next Experience Academy and no UNI Builder Live in May. We're going to be taking a break to prepare for and rest from the Knowledge 2024 conference. That's going to happen in Vegas, May 7th through the 9th, I'm pretty sure. And it's going to be a great time for you guys to go to knowledge.servicenow.com and check out the sessions. We have, I think, like 5 sessions between you and me, Brad, covering everything from introduction to workspaces to here's how advanced theming works to Brad's yearly build a killer blank experience lab is coming back. And we're going to be very busy for the next couple months getting all that content ready for you guys. So I hope you're able to come say hi at Knowledge. If not, just remember, no shows in May, and we'll be back in June. Was that enough time for you, Brad?
There was, yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'm curious to see whether the extension will let us see if we've put the wrong JSON in. I kind of saw there that maybe it would give us some sort of error if the JSON's not right. But that it's something that I've been struggling with a little bit as I build out this knowledge lab. So this is my knowledge lab. I think that's probably big enough for everybody, but I'm going to zoom in one more time, which is basically a little note-taking app. But a lot of the things in this app require some JSON in them. And so one of them are the drop-downs here. And it's expecting some specific JSON. So if I flip back over and we look at these drop-downs, where are they? Here's one. You can see here, and I've just hard-coded this in there, but you can kind of see if we look at the JSON that it expects an ID and a label. So I'm kind of wondering, will the extension pick up like if I'm passing the wrong JSON format, or would it be more that I'm like passing a string instead of JSON? Or should we test that?
I can imagine anything scarier than testing your product live in front of strangers. So I think we should test it, but go for it, Alap.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the extension kind of doesn't know the inputs and outputs of things necessarily. So I don't expect it'll catch it. But as Gabby says, hey, you don't know till you try.
So let's try the hard thing first. We don't think this is going to work. So like, let's say, what if I pass it like sysid and name instead of label? We know these are the wrong property names. So that shouldn't work, but let's go ahead and open up here. So state too big. I have some components that the state's too big. All right, so let's go ahead and refresh and see what happens. So it didn't surface anything new here.
Yeah, we don't have any. I think if it'd be interesting to think through that one a little more. I know we don't. We'd have to kind of analyze what's happening in the page to kind of figure out an indicator for it, because these are kind of like the indicators are basically like known error patterns. And so I don't know if we can tell. It's a good use case. It's something we'll have to take back and see if there's an opportunity there where like inputs and outputs are mismatched or something like that. But I'm not entirely sure if we would know that at runtime versus like something that might be interesting to think about as a UIB linter kind of time frame where they're, so you kind of even know that before you get to kind of like runtime almost.
Nice. Yeah, so we can see it's empty. Let's take a look at what does it tell us if we look at it here. Properties. Let's pop over. Is that the right? No, drop down's what we want. There we go.
Yeah. So if you
So it does show us what we passed it. It just doesn't know what to do with what we passed it here. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So you can see exactly, right? It doesn't know like, hey, what you're looking for is not matching necessarily because there's not
I'm curious about something here, though. If you were to double click on the items, like the stuff next to that there, not the word items, but the value next to it. Yeah, double click on that. You do see, and then you expand the schema on the right side there where it says items.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you were to try to edit it using the dev tools, it would tell you that it's invalid, I think. But
yeah. It is telling us what it's expecting here, it looks like, right? ID and label. So if we edit it, let's go back and
that is a good point.
Right.
And then if you click outside of here, it should do the validation again. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it did do it. It just didn't surface it right away, but I could tell because it wasn't working. So if we hit apply, will it change it? Yes. Just didn't take the label for some reason. That's all right.
Interesting. But yeah, that would be the feature in the...
No, that is the label. You have them backwards, Brad.
Oh, did I do them backwards?
Yeah.
Oh, I sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the tagline right there.
That's right. Sometimes it works. Hey, and that looks like it worked. There we go.
Thanks, Lisa.
So that's pretty handy. Yeah.
For those of us that were totally paying attention and not chatting about knowledge in the chat, could we get a replay on what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah, we can replay by refreshing. So what happened was I think we've done a better job at this lately in that when you have properties on components that are expecting JSON, we've done a better job of giving like the JSON that's expected in the property. But it's not always the case, and sometimes you've been working with it for a while, or somebody else has made some mistake with it, and so. For this one, what I did was I came in and I just put in the wrong property names here. So it should be ID and label instead of sysid and name. And so if we come and refresh here, I already did it. We can see that like this component knows there's two things, there's two elements in the array, but it doesn't know what to do with them. So if we come in and take a look at the component, I know it's the drop down here. We can see that it does have these two properties here, but then when I double click here, it tells me that something went wrong, right? My component's not rendering correctly, and it's basically telling me what the problem is here because there should be an ID.
Yeah, for any properties that have specified this schema information, we'll validate it whenever you try to save a new value here, editing it.
That is super handy.
That is pretty handy. So if I hit apply, then it will update it for me. And it works now, so I can go back into UIB and fix it. The other thing I wanted to test was, so we saw on the home page, there was two components here. What if we just provide it with, well, let me save it if I do the wrong. So if we just, that's too many highlights. Like if I say this isn't what it wants. Well, let me do that. Yeah. Let's see what we get here now. So we didn't get any changes here, but I'm guessing we would do the same thing at that case. We'd go look at it and it would tell us what's wrong. Let's see. Oh, nothing renders.
Yeah, I think it's just not rendering.
Yeah.
And I might have missed it earlier. What does state too big mean for that label?
Those are You can click on the view there. So basically, it's for state objects that are basically really wide or really deep. So we're tracking essentially how big this JSON object or this object is, and we want
basically when a component has large enough state that it could be a performance concern.
Yeah.
Nice.
What he said, better than me.
Can you explain what a state is like I am 5?
Oh.
When the values that are component specific, that are kept track of on a component specific basis, grow large enough that operating on them could be a performance concern.
You got it. Not bad. Thank you.
Actually, if we go,
And by you got it, I meant me, the 5-year-old brain, was able to understand that. So thank you.
I think we do kind of get into state here. So this is what we're talking about. I'm not going to like read this to everyone or anything, but there's actually a pretty good amount of information with the UI framework documentation that kind of talks about all of these different concepts and how they work and things like that. So it's probably, if you're brand new to it, if you're already like, if you have a lot of background with, reactive frameworks, this may make more sense. I know the first time I read it, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. And when I come back to it, the more I learn, the more it makes sense. But it does do a pretty good job of getting into some of these different concepts.
And then even in that dev tools, if you click that I, we did try to start doing some more information within the tool, so you don't have to go to docs necessarily. If you go back to that homepage, there's that little I icon right there.
The question mark, I think.
The question mark, sorry.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh.
We try to help describe what some of this stuff is. I don't know if we described it to the level 5-year-old, but we gave it a shot.
No, that's fantastic. It's okay. It's okay. At least you weren't like my coworker here who totally called me out for not reading documentation.
That was not my intention.
It was hilarious, though.
I was just trying to educate people where they could go for more info.
Thank you. And now I know. What is it? Developer.servicenow.com?
That's the one. Yeah. It's back. Wait, this way on my little screen. Oh, it's not in the frame. Never mind. Forget that happened. All right. That was kind of the main thing that I wanted to look at. Any other questions from the chat? Comments?
I think we are good on questions and comments.
All right.
Everything was clear as mud.
Yeah, nope. Everything made sense. No notes. I think, Brad, do you want to go ahead and close it out?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks to Wolf and Alap for sharing. I think if you're doing anything with workspaces, UIB, you should have this Chrome extension installed, be using it. I've had a couple of instances where it really helped me troubleshoot something. I had an instance where I was talking to somebody and they had built something. I don't know, hear my 1-year-old yelling at me. They had built something, and it was a component where it was expecting one of the properties was a record, right? And so you just give it a record and it works. And then she was dynamically binding data to it. And so she was binding a sysid to it directly, and it didn't work when we bound the sysid. And so it took some time, and eventually we figured out that what it wanted was a little object that had both the display value and the sysid. And so the way that we found that was we hard coded it, found that it works, opened the dev tools, and then actually looked at what the property was being passed, and it was an object, not just a sysid as a string. So that was a little thing that I don't know how long it would have taken us to figure that out without the dev tools. Like, could have been a couple hours before one of us thought like, oh yeah, we should try an object there. So again, if you're doing anything in UIB, absolutely, you should have the Chrome DevTools extension installed.
It's definitely super useful. And we did get a question in the chat. Where is the best place to share feedback about the extension?
Ooh, that is a good question. Is there a feedback button on the extension?
I think there is a feedback button on the extension store page, but I don't remember necessarily. I know we've gotten a couple of customers that have left feedback, and I'm guessing it's through there.
Yes.
Let me get back to you.
So that's one way. Also, if you just find your favorite outbound PM, we are always happy to pass along feedback. So if you work at a customer, you can absolutely give us feedback through your account team. You can find us on the community or SNDev Slack or LinkedIn or wherever and pass feedback. But we are always receptive to feedback, whether you hate something or you just want to see something in the future. We want our customers to have the best experience possible using these tools. So please pass on feedback.
And just, I guess, a selfish plug, I'll be posting a survey in communities to kind of get what you like the most, hate the most, want to see the most improved in community as well, most likely later today. So, if you have a bunch of things that you're just like, I want to get it all out, go for it in that way as well. So all kinds of ways you can tell us that you love us or hate us or both.
Send us a link and we'll post it in the description of this episode as well.
All right, we'll do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so very much for joining us today. It has been a fantastic experience. I closed out of the stream. Brad schooled me on docs. We had a lot of fun today. Once again, our next episodes, we go live the second and fourth Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern. We are not going to be doing any shows in May. And I hope we see you guys at Knowledge. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Bye.